Hello, and welcome back to episode 3 of Plant Magic Mondays with me, Siobhán, Carroll, and my gorgeous friend Olwyn Williams, who is here to provide magical knowledge about foraging and also a theme tune for my show. A theme tune and a guest. We're so profesh. And that's now the second time I've said that because we went on live and then got cut off because of internet issues and all sorts of madness. And then the thing wouldn't upload, and it was only half an episode. We just decided to start again. So here we are.
Round 2.
So this is round 2 of a not live Instagram live. So we're missing out on all our gorgeous comments that we had. There was loads of cool people on the call before we got cut off. So I'm so sorry if you're watching this as the recording and it got cut off in the middle of our live. I'm sorry you all probably got off mid-sentence talking about some magical foraging wisdom, but we're going to start again and have a quick chat. We'll just do about 15 minutes or so about foraging. So the first thing, really briefly, let's not go into it again about how you got into
Whoever
plants.
caught it live.
Exactly. If you caught it live about how Olwyn got into plants, you are lucky. This is why you got to tune in live.
Exactly. It's a lesson in life.
Exactly. But what I do think would be worth sharing where we got cut off, we were talking about foraging safely and how to make sure you're foraging plants safely and safety for yourself, but also, in sort of an environmentally friendly kind of way. So what are your top tips?
So we've done a little bit on safe foraging practice for us, not picking from the bottom of a hill in an agricultural area in case there's effluent or runoff coming from the land above, not picking from really low down P zones where people might be walking lots of dogs. It's different if you're in the countryside, then aren't so many dogs being walked. It's not that you know, there's still foxes and rats and other little animals and things, but like you definitely don't need to worry about it as much in the countryside as if you're compared to as if you're in an urban park. What else did we say? Downhill sites. If you're picking from the coastline, you don't really want to be picking from around a harbour or a dock or anything like that, because the water just won't be nice, and that'll be spreading up onto the land as well. And anywhere you can smell sewage going out onto the land or into the water, you don't want to pick from there. It's not going to be good. Busy roadsides, not ideal. But again, it depends what you want to use the plant for. If you want to use it to make a dye or an ink, say for elderberries is the one that I always go for, but it could be anything else. It could be hawthorn berries or hawthorn twigs or something. If you want to use it to make a dye or an ink, it doesn't really matter if it's coming from a grubby roadside and the plants are dirty or they have things taken up in the roots. But if you want to use it for medicine, yes, you want it to be from a clean environment and somewhere there's no pollution. In urban spaces as well, another thing that's worth considering is historical land use, or even in certain country areas. If there was a factory, now not so relevant in Ireland because we don't have a huge history of industry, but in somewhere like England where they had huge industry, you could be picking from an old industrial site where there could be lots of heavy metals in the earth that the plants are taking up. So there are just a few things to consider. There's plenty of things to consider, and then in terms of safe for the plant harvesting practices, you'll come across a rule of never take more than a third. I think that's too generous. I don't think it's the best guideline, because if you take a third, the idea being that another forager can come along and take a third, and then there'll be a third left for the plant, and that if anybody only takes a third, then there's still always some left, but a third is actually really a lot. If you imagine that you go into the woods and you see a huge big swathe of wild garlic and you take a third of that, you're going to have kilos and kilos and kilos. You're never going to be able to use it all, and it's going to be wasted. So you just never take more than you need. Never take more than you can process, which sometimes is difficult to gauge, especially when you're a beginner. Even when you're not a beginner, sometimes you can get really enthusiastic and pick loads of stuff.
I've been there.
Bring it home. I still have loads of crab apples sitting in my kitchen that I didn't get to do anything with. I picked way more than was physically possible to process, but they're going to be used for seed, hopefully, so it's okay. And never take more than a plant population can handle. And this is where it does take a little bit of getting to know your plants and learning to recognize what is a healthy plant population, what is a large enough plant population that can cope with having some of it picked. And it'll be different for different plants as well. So like if you're picking off one elderberry tree or elder tree, you don't want to pick all of the flowers, first of all, because they turn into berries. So if you pick all the flowers, there'll be no berries. And even when it is in fruit, you don't want to pick all of the berries because other creatures need them as well. And the tree needs them to put seeds out into the world. Wild garlic, you can pick lots and lots, but once it's a big, huge, healthy patch without damaging it too much. But depending if you're harvesting roots, you need to recognize that you might be killing the plant by harvesting it. So you need to make sure that there's a large stand of those plants there before you consider harvesting any roots, for example. So it does take a little bit of getting to know individual plants and plant families and how they grow and how quickly they grow. Do they regenerate? Are they really resilient? Do they produce a lot of seed or just a tiny bit of seed? It depends what you're picking for as well, whether it's flowers or seed or roots. But yeah, generally, as a general rule, you don't want to be uprooting a whole plant if you just want to harvest the flowers or the leaves. That's like really poor practice, especially with something like marsh samphire. I remember I went to a party once and somebody had harvested a load of marsh samphire, which is delicious, but not that common.
Yeah.
And they just
pulled all the roots up.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, it made me so sad.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So it's learning these things little by little, isn't it? Something Olwyn said in our actual live before we got cut off was how she had started to learn about these plants really little by little over really long periods of time. And I think that's it. Like, so if for people then who are new to this idea of foraging, or they've maybe done like a little bit, they've picked some dandelion greens from their garden or something, or they've maybe gone with a friend to pick wild garlic or something sometime. But what do you think is the best way for people to go about getting to know these plants more and becoming, eventually becoming foragers from novice to forager? What would be your recommendations for noobs?
So it's definitely treading the line between like the fear of picking something dangerous or something potentially fatal, and just having a bit of, I'm just going to try this, and a bit of confidence and a bit of confidence in yourself to do that, and bravery to just try new things. So it's treading that line. And I also recommend, going out with somebody who knows what they're talking about, whether that's a friend or a teacher or on a paid walk or on an informal gathering with some gardeners or whatever. Getting a few really good books. I always recommend that if you're new to it and you don't have some, because we don't all have a friend who does foraging, so you can't always just go, hey, do you want to go out for a walk?
Yeah, I forget, I live in a bubble, like.
Yeah, exactly. We do live in a bubble. We do. We have a bubble of like herbalist, forager friends, and we're really lucky.
We are so blessed.
But if you don't have that, then your next excellent source is really good books, in my opinion. I prefer books over the internet, and I'll talk about that in a moment now as well. But I generally
apart
recommend,
from shows like this, obviously, No, definitely. I also recommend books over even my own Instagram.
And I would recommend 3 references, whether that's 2 books and an internet source, a personal book and an internet source. But I'd often use 3 books, 3 good books, and you take your plant, you pick a bit of it, you take it home. Pick a bit if you're sure it's not a really rare plant. If it's really rare, please try and leave it there. But you go home, you look at your books, because they'll have a different description. Different foragers will say something slightly different about the flavour or about where you might find it. Pay attention to where you're picking it from, the habitat, because you might have 2 plants, say young lords and ladies and sorrel, common sorrel, look really similar when young lords and ladies is young, but they grow in completely different environments. So it's really important to not just have the leaf in your hand, but to remember, where did I pick that from? Was it growing under a beech tree? Was it in a spruce plantation? Was it in a hedgerow or meadow? All of these kind of things, they're all part of getting to know the plants, is getting to know the environment that they come from as well, the landscape that they come from. So you take it home, you look in your books and you identify it. You look at the plant morphologically, so you look at the shape, you look at the colouring of the leaf, what it looks like on the bottom, are there any hairs, what shape is the stem, all of these kind of features. Then at the habitat, and you check in your books, and you check, and if all 3 books confirm that what you have is sorrel, then go for it, try it. And then you can do a taste test. So you first maybe just bruise a little bit of it and put it on your lip, and if there's no funny sensations like stinging or burning, you put a little bit on the tip of your tongue. And then if there's still no funny sensations, you can move it further back onto your tongue. So you're not eating it, you're not ingesting it or swallowing it, you're just testing it, because some of the poisonous ones, they'll taste really acrid, or they'll be really sharp, or they'll burn you, they'll burn your mucous membranes, and you'll know about it straight away. You'll be like, this is not for eating.
It's like one of the ways the plants will talk to us. Yes. It's really, it's good feedback.
Yes, this is part of the conversation. Yeah, and then you just spit it out. Yeah. And you haven't done yourself any major harm because it's been a really small amount. So that's a way to begin. I can't even remember what the question was.
Yeah, no, you're to begin getting into foraging. You see, I feel like you know, especially nowadays in our world and our society, we're so like, we've this like immediate need for instant gratification, and like it's a long process to get to know plants, and it's, you know, you need to be patient, and it's not just like I'm just going to pick something that looks like it's you know what I think it is and then eat it really fast, and then all of a sudden I'm going to like start choking and you know vomiting or something, you know, like, so it is a slow process, but it's like getting to know a person, you know. You're not instantly going to be best pals. You gotta like get to know each other a little bit, like do some like background research. And
I use this analogy all the
time,
all the time. So you have the botanical way of getting to know a plant, which is looking at the shape, looking at the form, the shape of the stem, all of that stuff that I just said, which I liken to, you know, somebody's name maybe, and you recognize them. So like say you're in college or you're in work or in the town where you live, and you know that's Mary. I see her every now and again. We take a class together, but I don't really know anything about her. I know roughly what she looks like. She's got blonde hair, she's got glasses, blah, blah, blah. And I know her name, maybe. Maybe I don't know her name, I just know her face.
Yeah.
That's the botanical way. And then you have the more personalised, more intimate way of getting to know plants, which is when you get their personality, when you start ingesting them, you start bringing them into your home, this kind of thing. And that's the equivalent of going for a walk in the park with somebody, having dinner with them, hanging out with them, having chats with them, where you really get to know them, and it's not just a face, or it's not just a leaf shape.
I really like this analogy because there's the kind of third way there, which we talked about before, about the, you know, getting to know someone via the internet. And it's like when you fancied someone in college, or when I fancied someone in college. I'm not going to put this on anyone else, but when I fancied someone in college, and I'd look them up on Facebook and look all about them because I'd want to know a bit more about them and where they might hang out. And that's terrible stalkerish. But I just want to know, you know, a little bit. That's what we do nowadays, you know. So that internet learning about someone, or if you're like swiping on Tinder or something and you're trying to get to know someone from their pictures, you really don't know them from this weird Facebook stalking / Tindering.
That's brilliant.
Until you actually get to hang out with them in real life, and it's the same for the plants.
That's it. That is. Yeah. I'm delighted now I have a third part for that. Brilliant. But that's it. Yeah, you can certainly learn more about a plant or a person by perusing them on the internet, but you're not getting a real connection to them. You're getting a connection that is mediated by a screen, and by frame, or by somebody else's experience, and by what they're choosing to put on the internet about that plant. So it won't be your experience. It might be secondhand or third hand or fourth hand even information. So yeah, that's brilliant. I really like that.
Very good. And I'd also love to suggest that wherever you are in the world, find a foraging class. There's loads of them taking place now, but if you live in Ireland and you're anywhere near to the Galway area, Olwyn runs amazing foraging walks, and I think you do them in other parts of the country as well.
I have done a couple in Kilkenny and a few in Dublin. Now I don't have any Dublin ones planned this year. There might be a Kilkenny day coming up much later in the year.
But tell us about your upcoming class. I love the title of it. It's called Rewild Your Palate, and I think that's so important as well. So you're not only are you getting to know these plants, there's this really important layer to it. I think from me as a naturopath, the clients that I see all the time, we're always working on digestion as the root of so many different issues that come up. And this very kind of nearly mono diet that people often eat, even if you're eating organic from the supermarket, I find it myself a lot, like the organic veg that I can get are the same, and we're eating a lot of the same food all the time, which isn't what we were designed to do. So rewilding your palate is so important for so many of our health issues as well.
I think so. And yeah, you get a whole range of micronutrients and secondary compounds in plants and things that in the like a much wider spectrum by eating a wider variety of wild plants than we do with our little sort of almost tunnel vision with our supermarket plants, because it's right, you end up eating a lot of the same things. So I'm really pleased that the season is kind of the let's say workshop season is starting again. So I have a bunch of walks planned.
Cool.
Second Saturday of every month in the Sliabhachtaí Centre, which is
gorgeous place
near Lochray. It's lovely. Exactly.
So nice.
Horse riding stables, organic cafe and restaurant, and so I do walks from there. So the first one is coming up on the 11th of March, and then so that's a walk. That's a half day sort of morning thing where we do plant identification. We go and talk about all the uses of the plants that we find around the area there. And then we also have some tasters. So I always bring some tasters, so you get to try a couple of the things. And then on Sunday the 12th of March, I'll be running a full day workshop at my home, which is called the Happy Pig, very close to the Sliabhachtaí Centre. So we're still in the Kylebrack, East County Galway area. And that's a full day. So that's 10 to 4:30. We do the plant identification walk bit in the morning. So we're outside all morning looking at plants, talking about them. meeting them. Then we have a 3-course lunch, most of which I will prepare or will be prepared already, but we'll always try and make something on the day as a group, whether it's a pesto or a salad or something. And then the afternoon is spent making a couple of things. So the idea being that we forage some things on the day and we make 2 or 3 things for everybody to go home with. So you get a lot of introduction to a lot of different preservation techniques and different ways that you can use them and recipe ideas, and you get to sample lots of things on the full day one. You get to sample 3 or 4 things on the walks, but you get a lot more hands-on and a lot more ideas from the full workshops. Yeah.
Amazing. And if you're not local to Ireland or this part of Ireland and can't make it to any of these, make sure you follow Olwyn's page, which I'll have linked in. It's going to be a video description now, so you can't actually follow it like normally in the live. You just click follow. Anyway, we're not live. What can you do? Internet. So make sure to follow Olwyn. She comes up with great posts and recipes and things like that, and lots of information about these wild plants. There was a gorgeous recipe for sourdough buckwheat.
Oh, I didn't even put the
gorse.
recipe.
You didn't even put the recipe, but
I
it was inspired.
Recipes.
Don't do recipes, but let's give you ideas anyway. Sourdough buckwheat gorse pancakes for Pancake Tuesday. I was like, wow, nice. So yeah, definitely follow Olwyn's page. She's new to Instagram, only in the last couple of months, which is very amazing to have you on there. Well done, and not an easy task to jump into that mad world now. But welcome.
Thanks.
And thank you so much for being here.
No, it's great.
Is there anything else you want to share with people before we finish?
Do we have anything? Yeah. Is there anything else I want to share with people? Don't be too afraid. I think don't be too afraid to just, because you don't have to start with everything all at once. You don't suddenly have to be making giant bowls of wild food salads and having wild food with every meal. You can pick one plant that you want to focus on and that you want to start with and take your time with it. Cool. Because we live in such a fast-paced world. There's such overwhelm with the amount of information being thrown at us all the time, and like everything is like scroll and click and super fast. Nobody has time to breathe anymore, but yet you're bombarded with all these lovely posts about how to breathe. And it's like, it's too much. So go slowly. Yeah, there's really no rush. Think about it like a new romantic relationship. There's no rush.
Love it.
Just take your time.
Gorgeous. Gorgeous. Thank you, Olwyn.
It's a love affair.
Oh, a love affair with the plants. Yes. That's it. So thank you, Olwyn. Thank you so much for being here in person in my house, coming for the chats on my show, which hopefully this will upload onto the internet at some point. Let's see. And thank you all for watching if you've watched this far, and please let us know any comments you have in the comments, and we'll get back to you. So thanks so much.
Bye, friends.